The station of the stars. RTI.
Morning, one and all. How the devil are you? Trust you well. Hello, Steve, and everybody else who's already joined us there. Chat rooms filling up all over the place, which is rather nice, really. Hello to Rachel.
Hello, Uncle Eric. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Henry.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello, Jim Bob. Sorry,
How are you?
That's a bit of an old joke, really. That was a bit of an old joke, really, wasn't it?
It was.
It was.
That's all right.
Okay, how am I? Very quiet here. Very quiet indeed. We're well. This is my first time out in 7 days.
Gosh.
I know, it's terrible. And I was looking at everywhere for the police cars this morning going, hope they don't stop me, hope they don't stop me, hope they don't stop me. Because they are stopping people here to make sure that they're only doing really important journeys or if they're part of the emergency services going to work, things like that. But as opposed to other countries, this really is a lockdown situation. Probably... I suppose a 10-minute journey to work in the car, and I saw 5 vehicles. That was it. No more. No more. So that's about it. I've got news about expat stuff here in a moment. But first of all, we'll
Uncle
say...
Eric, I must say, I was expecting singing.
You were expecting singing?
Yes, for yesterday.
I haven't got there yet.
Well, do I wait? Am I impatient?
You are impatient, and because I have not said hello to Uncle Dave yet, have I?
Well, that's true. I am trying to steal Dave's radio light.
You are, aren't you? Hello, Dave.
Very rude. I'm sorry,
Hello.
Dave.
Hello.
That's okay.
How's the voice this morning, dear boy?
I think it's fine. Yes.
I don't think we'll do as well as the Minions.
Oh, no.
But no, but we'll do
I'm not
our...
sure singing is going to be... we might get pulled off by Facebook. Everybody else.
I don't think they
Who
even...
owns the copyright to Happy Birthday?
I don't know. Although they do say that if you're talking and it's a background noise, they don't worry. So we'll go down that premise, and if they cut us off, I'll slag them off as I reconnect. Okay. What are you on about? You nana, Steve. Every time Rachel says, hello, Uncle Eric, I keep thinking of the song lyric, Uncle Eric is helping police with their inquiries. Marvellous.
Well, that might be true.
It could be true. It could be true indeed. But first of all, we have to tell you, at the grand old age of 22 again, it was Rachel's birthday yesterday. So on the count of 99, we would sing to her happy birthday, which is going to be awful because we've got so many time delays, it's going to be completely out of sync. But basically, do we care? Not a chance in hell. 96, 97, 98, 99. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rachel. Happy birthday to you.
To you.
There you go.
That was very well done considering the delay. I thought it was almost perfect.
It's not bad, was it, really?
Pretty good.
Steve's ears are hurting. Hello to Miro, who's joined us. Nice to have you with us, Miro. Welcome. Dobrý den. Ako se máš, Miro? Dobre? Okay. We're going to go to a couple of important things first, and then
Wait, we haven't said hello to Henry.
True.
We did, sort of, because Henry said hello.
Look, I'm just letting you know that I'm here on a very quiet Bondi Beach, and I'm sure you all know why.
Oh, yes.
Of course, yeah. All the bars are shut.
No, what happened was last Friday, during the day, our time, and before we went to air last Friday night, it was 37 degrees in Sydney, in the middle of autumn, mind you, which is not unusual anymore, and thousands of people went down to the beach. It made world news, and they were all crammed together on this beach, over 3,000 people on this beach, on Bondi Beach.
Yeah.
And the authorities got onto this, and they thought, what the hell's going on here? So they shut the beach the next day, and it's been shut ever since.
Yeah, same stories. Or I'm sure Dave will be doing the same stories in a moment from the UK as well. How stupid are people? How
It
stupid.
happened here in Melbourne today. They shut a beach down for the exact same reason a week
Good.
later.
Good. Do you know what? I have no time for these people who go, oh, goody, it's a holiday. You idiots. I know it feels surreal, but the bottom line is this is a global pandemic, for God's sake. You've got to start helping your... If you don't stay indoors, the only people that you're hurting, apart from yourself and relatives, are actually all the hospital, emergency staff, everybody that works in caring, because you're screwing their world up, for Christ's sake.
The problem is that young people think they're invincible, and they don't listen to the media. And again, just to reference Bondi again, they had a party in Bondi because they couldn't go to the beach, and they had loads of people at this party, and 6 of them have coronavirus, and they're between 20 and 30 years of age.
I kind of get you, but if I look on Periscope at the moment and a couple of the other ones, that there are a lot of young people listening. And I think the irony is, no offence to anybody on Facebook, I think the older people are on Facebook, the younger people are on other services, and that's why
Instagram.
Things like that. But on the audio side of it, we do feed into other services, so hopefully we get the balance. I'm going to cut across you here, guys, because I've got a couple of dutiful duties to do. The first one is Brits in Slovakia are waiting for driving licence exchanges. Now, all the paperwork has got as far east as Poprad. We actually took a phone call from the police this morning. And they assured us that everybody will be covered. They know who everybody is or are, and erstwhile you can still drive, and they accept it. That's probably another message coming in from somewhere. And not to worry, they don't want you to go to the police stations at the moment to actually queue up there, because the only services that are there are the emergency services. You can wait, you can get your driving licence a little bit later on, it is no problem. Now, as far as Dave will probably talk about MOTs being extended in a moment in the UK, but here, if you haven't got your test done, unless you've got an old test certificate that can be extended, you cannot drive your car. You must not drive your car if you're an expat on British plates unless you've got a valid MOT or an emission test in Slovakia. Now, if you've got neither, you're just going to have to wait. You just got to leave your car in the garage and wait until it's all over. And that is the bottom line. As far as flights and access are concerned, there have been some flights going from Vienna over to Holland for people wanting to go back to GB. I think most are back now. The Czech Republic has been laying on buses from the coaches, luxury coaches from the UK, and some Slovak citizens have been managing to take up the empty seats. Now, we don't know any more than that at the moment, but we are being updated on a regular basis from the police, from the embassies. They're all being fantastic. And whilst we're not here, you can find 99.9% of the really important information on RTI's Facebook page, RTI Radio, and or the Consumer Watch Foundation. That we will keep updating throughout the week, and everything will be marvellous. Now, the other thing to bear in mind here is that if you're young like me, waiting for the abuse, you should be looking for a letter about face masks and other services. If you're in the Slovak system, they will contact you. As happened to me on Monday, my asthma doctor SMS'd me to see if I was okay personally from his own personal phone, alongside the messages we've been getting from the government in the previous weeks. So as long as you're part of the Slovak medical system as an expat, you will get the information passed to you. If you've got medical conditions, they will probably get in touch. Don't worry about it. They're checking to make sure you're okay. And as I say, my asthma doctor, Ivan, he actually texts me on Monday. I've got others. And even though other things are going on, things like my other seniors, as they put it here, checkups will be carrying on next week. So everything's kind of organised that way around. I'm not saying it's perfect because nothing's perfect during the pandemic, but everything's being organised. So please keep your eyes on RTI Radio, Consumer Watch Foundation. We'll keep the news flowing through there, and we're actually feeding it, or well, I'm not literally feeding it, but people are taking it and using it onto other sites as well, which is fan-dabby-dozy. And, you know, the more the merrier. Please share. We don't mind. It's part of what we're doing. I don't care whether you just steal it or whatever you do. It's fine with me. We just want to get the information out to the citizens as fast as we can. And at which point, there is breaking news in the UK. So I'm going to go to Dave first this week to bring us the latest, very frightening update.
Ah, yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. So the big news that's broken in the last hour is Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister in the UK, has tweeted the following. Over the last 24 hours, I have developed mild symptoms and tested positive for coronavirus. I am now self-isolating, but I will continue to lead the government's response via video conferencing as we fight this virus. Together we will beat this. Hashtag stay home, stay live. Save lives, sorry.
That's rather worrying because his partner's pregnant.
Indeed, they don't actually know whether she is in Downing Street with him at this moment. I heard them discussing it earlier, and that was one of the things that was raised. He also uploaded a video clip, which is 2 minutes something, where he basically said that he had the virus, but he wasn't feeling too bad. And he also thanked everybody for the applause that we did at 8 o'clock last night, which was
cool.
That was so cool.
Today.
And
Cool.
there is another one going around which some of my old buddies from Radio Caroline sent me, and it's actually a blue balloon. For the NHS. So if you get one of those, just keep it going. It's just a nice thing to do to help the health services. Which reminds me, sorry Dave to interrupt you, before I forget, I took a phone call from one of the councillors in Spiskanova Ves, which is a tiny town about 15 minutes away from here. And I think it probably applies more to Slovakia than to here, to the UK. But, you know, if you want to help in the UK, not a problem. Now, there's two, although everybody's covered under a medical system like the NHS, it's free at the point of entry. Some of the hospitals, or the vast majority of hospitals, are actually state-owned. Some of them are still privately owned, effectively by the local authority. Now, they're not on the top of the pecking order when it comes to things like face masks. And Spiskanova Ves, the hospital, has actually run out of face masks. So if anybody I'd like you to do is just send them to, what shall we call it? I've got to think of something very quickly. Face mask appeal. That'll do. Just put face mask appeal. The post is still working. You can send them from anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. Face mask appeal, and just send them to Aqua City. That's the easiest address. Aqua City Poprad. You don't need all the rest of it, because everything that you write to Aqua City Poprad will just get there. So face mask appeal, Aqua City Poprad, Slovakia, excuse me, and that will get there. But they are in dire need out there. And it's one of those small towns that has very little and need a lot of help. In the same fashion as, believe it or not, I live in a country where some small villages and towns right out to the east near the Ukraine still don't actually have the internet there at all. And you've got teachers walking around, but they're going to their school. using their own phones, printing off the day's education for the students. You're talking of kids, 10, 12 years old, and actually walking round the villages with face masks on and gloves, giving the school work to the kids. I mean, that is dedication to duty beyond, but they are doing it. So anyway, if you can help, face mask appeal, Aqua City, Poprad, Slovakia, just anything you can send would be gratefully appreciated. Dave, back to you.
Thank you. There's so much to go through. I will probably miss loads of bits and pieces, but we'll try and rattle through as much as we can.
Yep.
You're probably aware that earlier in the week the government announced a huge range of financial assistance for people. So they're going to pay 80% of people's salaries, and they're the people that are employed. Yesterday they announced a scheme for self-employed people. There seems to be quite a lot of confusion over that as well, but they're looking to pay 80% of their salaries as well.
Yeah, but that's a bit naughty, isn't it?
Yeah, it works out over an average of 3 years, and if you haven't got 3 years, there's questions being raised. What's going to happen? It's all a bit complicated, and to be entirely honest, I think a lot of these things are just being created and then fed out to the public, so they're sort of catching the issues as they go. Normally these things would take ages and ages and ages to create.
Yeah, but the thing is, Dave, if you've been a good boy with your tax over 3 years and your turnover's 50k, then you're fine as a self-employed person. Now, if you've been a naughty girl or boy and done unspeakable things with your tax returns, you're going to blow out, aren't you?
I guess so, yeah. It's quite a good way of them finding out who's been naughty and who's been nice.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, sorry, mate.
So there's loads of financial things that have been announced. You mentioned about MOTs and cars. This I haven't heard much on the news. If you have a car with an MOT in the UK that is due it up to and including Sunday the 29th of March, then you have to get the MOT done. You've got to find a garage that's open. They are allowed to be open to do MOTs, but that's going to be a bit of a challenge, I guess. But if your MOT is after the 30th of March, it will automatically be extended by 6 months.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about trying to get your car MOT'd if the MOT runs out after the 30th of March.
Okay. Good morning to Tim Preston. Hello, mate. How are you?
Morning, Tim. Let's flick through a couple of other things that have appeared this morning. All the local authorities in the UK have been told to house all of their rough sleepers by the weekend. The Met in London is calling up the retired officers from the last 5 years to help out. Firefighters have said they're planning to help out driving ambulances and delivering medicines and transport bodies and bits and pieces as time goes on. We've got the Department of Housing this morning has advised buyers, renters and sellers to try and delay moving home while the measures are in place, and they've even said those that are planning to try and move today, they should delay. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work.
No.
What else we got here? Some interesting things that we found out only by complete accident, mainly because the council here has done it. Some councils have stopped a collection of recycling, and they have also closed their local recycling centres. So if you've, like us, put out a whole load of tins and bottles and things to be recycled and be collected this week, and they haven't gone, it's because those collections have been put on hold.
All right.
So check your local council's website, because that will tell you whether they are still doing it or not. I had a quick flick around some last night. Some are doing it, some aren't doing it. So check your local council's website, and then you'll know whether the rubbish is going to disappear from the end of your drive.
And can I add to that, Dave? If you have somebody of a senior age, a lot of which won't have the interweb, if you can find out that sort of thing, just scribble it down on a piece of paper and pop it through their letterbox, so that they know. You don't have to stop and talk to them, or hug them, or get infected, or give them an infection. You can just pop stuff through boxes, or just let them know it's not a problem. And in actual fact, I had a WhatsApp message from somebody the other day saying, I've had because this guy is actually in quarantine, self-quarantine, having returned to Slovakia, and he has to be there for 12 days. And the dispatch lorries, I won't say which one, but they're all working. And good on you for all working, guys. Delivered a television to this place that he'd been given, and because the internet was already there, and a television box. The only trouble is they hadn't given him a cable to connect the box to the TV.
Oh,
so how frustrating was that? So I said, don't worry, mate, I'll wander round, which I did, with the cable, put it onto the top of his post box. When I got back home, I then messaged him and said, there you go, mate, it's outside on your post box. He said, yeah, I heard you drop it, but didn't come out. I waited for you to go. Sensible solution, and away we go from there. Hello to Suna and Ahmed, who've joined us. And Dave, are you just about there?
I'm just about there. Just to cover something with the rubbish and recycling, they are collecting your normal household rubbish, so you haven't got to worry about that sitting there and rotting. And the only other quick things is, other than Boris Johnson, we know Prince Charles tested positive yesterday. Of course, he's the heir to the throne. And if Boris Johnson gets to a state where he can't carry on being Prime Minister while he's got coronavirus, the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, will take over. He's the deputy. So there we go.
Yeah,
hang on a minute. If he's the heir to the throne, does that mean that this disease is now airborne?
Oh, very good. Very good. No, but I'll tell you what, as we've interrupted, Dave, I do want to have a little rant, only a minor one before we go to Australia.
Go on.
For these people that are going, oh, he got tested first. No, you numpties. He didn't, and in fact the guy who's in charge up at the Scottish National Health Service categorically stated, because of his age, and don't forget Scotland's a very, very small country in terms of the population, he was tested straight away because of his age. Not because of what he is and what he will become, but because of his age. They get in touch, you're coughing, blah, blah, blah. And he's 72, I think, and he was tested because of his age. Stop being politically stupid.
And he was tested because he'd been sitting in a conference room with Prince Albert for a week.
Before, who's got coronavirus?
Exactly.
Oh, I give up sometimes with people. They are so stupid. Are we there, Dave?
Only to say that it's just come through that some other members of Number 10 staff are also self-isolating.
Which I don't blame them, really. And the thing is, do you know what's really wonderful in a sort of reverse way?
Go on.
Even with the announcements that are being made from political quarters, a lot of the heads of country are using IP or internet protocol television systems and radio systems so that they can talk to journalists who in turn can file the answers for their readers, listeners and viewers. But it stops everybody getting together. They don't have to wear face masks actually in 10 Downing Street because it's a bit pointless anyway, because they're all so close together. But they're not risking anybody else by going out into the world, the wider world, and potentially causing major issues. So good on them all for actually using the technology that we have in 2020, like we're doing today. I mean, we're hardly 2 metres apart, are we? We're thousands of metres apart.
No, goodness, no.
For goodness sake. And yet we're still getting the messages out to people and hopefully helping one or two. And I've just been corrected. Charles is 71. 71. There you go. So over to Rach and Henry then.
Well, hello
Yes.
all. Hello, Henry.
Hi, Rach.
How you going?
Shall I start?
You all right? Yeah.
Yes.
You hanging in there?
I'm hanging in here. I'm just fine. I just want to mention a couple of things here. Well, I don't know how it works around the world, but we've got 3 stages, and I think that might be a global thing, of shutdowns. At the moment, we're in stage 2, which means that takeaway places are open, pubs are closed, restaurants are closed, obviously. Most places that are not necessary are closed. So supermarkets are still open, for instance. Chemists are open. But now we're being told by experts, they call them experts here in Australia, and by the way, it depends on what state you're in. Rach, you're in the state of Victoria, I'm in New South Wales. It's a state-by-state thing. New South Wales is saying that we are probably going to move to stage 3, which is called a complete lockdown, which is happening in places like Italy. And I don't really know what that means. Does it mean that you can't go to the supermarket? Do you have to get everything delivered? I know I've got a friend living in northern Italy, and he said he has everything delivered. The shops, everything's closed. Rach, what's it like in Victoria?
It's actually it's well, we're at the same point as you. You guys have 1,405 cases. We have 574. Do you remember Adam and I spoke earlier in the week, and it was 2008?
On what iTunes, yeah.
Yeah, that was, and now 3 days later, it's 3,166. So clearly, we're doing something wrong. What's happening here is stage 2 as well. Daniel Andrews, the Premier of Victoria, has said that stage 3 is coming. They're actually moving faster than the federal government is, because they feel it's more urgent. So, with what stage 3 means is that all shops will be shut down. So all retail will be shut down, which it currently isn't. It's just places where people gather in big groups. So, as Henry said, restaurants, cafes, etc.
Are you guys... Sorry, Rach. Are you guys using the 2 metre rule that they're doing here?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yep,
So every
yeah.
shop has got a sign on the floor and outside.
I went down to the local shop. I live over a corner shop, and they've got a grey tape on the floor away from the counter, and you can't pass that line, so to speak. So you're kind of stretching with your credit card to actually, zap it against the machine. But that's
true.
an example of that. But the other thing to note is that, yes, we have those rules, but many people are just not paying attention.
Not obeying them at all, and it's sort of a mixture of people. But I hate to pick on them, but it's the millennials. They really don't understand that this is an illness that can strike you at any age. It's not just an old people illness.
The problem with that, Rach, was that at the beginning they said that children and young people or teenagers and in their 20s were not as likely to get it. That was the worst thing they could have said, because that gave them the green light to do whatever they want.
Yep,
exactly.
absolutely.
There are a couple of new measures that came out from the federal government today. Now, anybody who actually arrives back in Australia, we're trying to repatriate over 3,000 people who are stuck overseas. When they get here, they will go into a quarantine, but they won't. If they are residents here, they will not be able to return home and self-quarantine. They're being put in hotels, which is being checked on by the armed forces. Army are going there to check and make sure that people are doing the right thing. If they're not, they'll be heavily fined, and it's just not worth doing. If you are a corporation that does the wrong thing, you will be fined $5,000. If you are an individual that is doing the wrong thing, you'll be fined $1,000. They are now, for example, at my work, if you come inside our building and you are not an employee, if you are a previous employee, or even if you're an employee who's supposed to be working from home, you ask to sign a declaration before you can go into an office. So that's pretty interesting. It's also
there was another interesting story. Sorry,
Australia. We need to move faster in Australia.
There was a story of a woman who just came from Dubai, and she went into told not to leave home, and she gave her husband a lift to work, and they found her, and she's been fined $1,000, and her husband said that she's very ill and she's got a heart condition, and he apologized profusely, But it's interesting that, even driving, they said you can't leave home, and she did.
Yeah.
And I think this is a thing where they're saying, okay, here's an example of what could happen to you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it's a she'll be right mentality. We have borders shutting down now across the country. Western Australia is a border that's been closed. As a result, my Robbie can't come home, and we don't know when he will be able to. So it may be months before I get him home, before I see him, and that's a bit distressing. But it's for the good, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So we have to sacrifice, and everybody has to. On a positive note, Henry and I both have jobs. We both have houses to live in, and neither of us are ill. So there are things to be thankful for.
From Steve, if this had happened when you started your career, could you have worked from home? And in my case, definitely not.
No, not me either. And I can't work from home still now in this century. I can't work from home. It can't be done.
Henry?
I wonder, I thought about this, thinking about the Black Plague and stuff that happened in the late 1800s or even earlier. They didn't have the internet. And I thought, how do they communicate? They didn't have telephones. How do you get information to people? And someone said to me on social media, for goodness sake, they had the town crier.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
You're all going to get sick.
Ding dong, ding dong, yeah, and sing Ring a Ring of Roses and stuff back then. What about you, Dave? Because you're the youngest one.
Well, I was working. My first job was working in a tape library in a post house, where they edit TV shows. So no, not really, because I had to deliver the videotapes to the edit suite so they could edit the video, and it was all done on tape, not digital stuff.
I remember going with you to NBC.
Yeah, and those big clunky video machines, and we sat there and edited stuff together, didn't we?
Yeah, and the guy said, "Don't worry, lads," as we walked in looking very sheepish, and not apart from Dave's training that he'd had by watching everybody else. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, "Don't worry, lads, even an expert works on the premise of 1 minute's broadcast quality material takes an hour to make." So it was an 1:1 ratio. And we'd said we wanted to do all this stuff, and he kind of laughed. But we did it, didn't we? That was the question to Dave.
Is that where you were splicing? Were you splicing the tape? Like I used to do that.
No, go on, Dave. You explain.
Cut out.
Dave.
I think Dave's fallen off his chair.
Yes, no, he's still there. Allegedly.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. It suddenly went click, and I disappeared.
Oh, all right.
Well, you disappeared.
Well,
Your hip, Dave.
what we were saying, Dave, was this. To recap, the guy that told us it was an hour's broadcast content took an hour to make. Henry said, "Did you have to splice the tapes together?" And I said, "No, but Dave will answer."
Ah, right. Yeah, it was tape to tape, basically, just like the old days. So you had to put your in point and your out point. Very similar to how it works today, but physically you had to spool tapes back and forward to find the bits that you wanted.
Yeah.
And then it was basically just copying those little bits onto your master to create the master tape.
Yeah, it was little 7-inch screens, if I remember.
We had some. You usually had 7-inch screens so you could see what each of the machines were doing.
Yeah.
And then you'd have like larger screens, but they probably weren't any bigger than 28-inch sort of 4x3 screens to do your final master. Not like today when you walk in and they've got these massive 55-inch flat screens on the wall, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, as I can now. I've got a 60-inch screen in the front room, and if I want to, I can access all of this building from that television set with a wireless mouse keyboard thingy, and I can do whatever's needed. I had a call the other day saying, "Oh, this isn't right. What can I do?" I said, "Hold on a minute. I'll log in." Fixed it. Thank you. Came back the message, and everything carried on. Not that we were off air. It's just that we couldn't or there was something that just didn't work right, so I fixed it. Hello to Tom. And today you can do those things, but here's the funny one. I vividly remember, to answer Steve's question about the beginning of your career, and I use this in terms of when I first got paid for doing anything. I'm
surprised you can remember back that far.
One of the greatest tracks of all time came out that week, and I played it as my pick of the week. And it was Denis Denis by Blondie before it got in the charts. So you look up the date that it was released in the UK, and that's exactly how long I've been in the industry. That's a long time ago. But it's still a great track. It's a great track. But there you go. Rach, what about you?
I started in transport, so I could not have worked from home because we have to handle paperwork that comes in operationally from the floor. When the freight arrives, we have to do that. Prior to that, when I was a actress, could not have done that from home. I could, but it's just called rehearsal. But and now I can clearly do this job from home. But at the moment, as one of the very lucky people in Australia who's still got a job and will not lose it in any way, we have to still go to the office, which is a little bit scary because I don't like to leave while people are running around ill. But we still have to process that freight that's going to Tasmania to keep them alive.
No, Denis Denis by Blondie was not released in 1066. Hello? Denis Denis by Blondie was not released in 1066. Silly people. No, but actually, I was talking to a colleague yesterday in the UK, and I said, thank God there's no health and safety operatives about at the minute. Well, certainly it's different in Slovakia anyway, because if they went into our tech room at the moment, it looks like a spider's web of cables lying all over the floor, just to make provision so that everybody in the team can work from home. And it is a bit of a mess, and yes, it would be dangerous to work in there. We wouldn't keep it going all the time, but we have that ability. And looking at the way it's going, I've ordered some other bits and bobs for home to build a complete server network at home, so we can do more and more from there, because it's going to take a while. It really is. But no, we couldn't have, in any shape or form. I'm trying to think. I can't even think of anything digital at that point. No, there wasn't.
I can't.
No.
Well, you did have I'm just thinking back to where I began. You had the first digital satellite receiver I'd ever seen.
Yes, that's true.
So but when we were doing radio back in the 90s,
Yep.
it was all massive, clunky equipment and stuff. We did actually do an OB from an exhibition hall. I remember doing that, and that was a bit of a nightmare.
That was actually. I'm not sure how you pronounce this, but I think it's Gail. I'm sure it's Gail. Hello, Gail. How the devil are you? And I think, by the look of it, you're in Germany. Hello, Germany. Hope you're doing very well there. Keep safe. Where England played in the World Cup final, were the streets as empty as they are now? Yes, they were, Steve. If you go back to 1966... the streets were empty everywhere. The irony of it was very almost distressing for little Eric. We were due to go, and we did go, to a scout camp on that particular weekend. So I took this huge radio, which was a bit dodgy, and I had to keep belting it every now and again to make it work. And we listened to the World Cup on the radio. Didn't see it on Vision for about... couple of weeks afterwards, when the BBC re-ran it, because we didn't have video recorders then either. You just had to wait for somebody to show it again. Flipping heck. It does make... It is actually quite astounding what we can do. And I'm thinking, from a news point of view, Henry, because I know that you know that I know, blah, 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 but you do it. I mean, when you were news gathering back in the day... I mean, what was it like?
Well, it was different, I'll tell you that. We didn't have reporters. We didn't have reporters in the field. Because we were an illegal radio station, a pirate radio station. We did have the Press Association wire coming through from London, and that gave us news before the national broadcaster RTE, which really annoyed them. But Gathering News was often lifting news from the national broadcaster, but generally using the Press Association from London, which of course gave us world news. And the kind of station Nova was that it didn't concentrate on Irish news very much. It was more world-based news, and we were asked or told to make this our news bulletins a global news bulletin. You got to remember we're being listened to in Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland.
Oh, it looks like that machine's gone on me. I should have known it, the text fighting back. Okay, let's see what we can do with that. I shall do exactly as the IT department say. Excuse me being a little way away from the system. We shall turn it off and turn it on again and see what happens. That is a machine that's just completely thrown its toys out of the pram and left me in the lurch somewhat. Hi to Epso, and I have to say hello to Laura as well. No, Steve, I didn't actually come from the Stone Age, but it is interesting how much tech, as I try and get the other three back on the line, it's not the internet that's gone wrong, it's a server. How the tech that we had then, in comparison to today, does almost the same sort of things, apart from the video side of it, which has come on leaps and bounds. But, you know, it was just different then. I mean, can you imagine one of the pieces of tech that was there for cars was actually a record player that you could put in your car? It was rubbish. It was awful. It was terrible. But we had to have one. I think we're nearly back. We'll have a go in a minute, don't worry. And the bottom line is that the only thing it did was keeping me off the gas. I didn't put my foot on the throttle at all because there was no throttle, because if you did go fast, the records skipped and broke. And they were actually records that were like a jukebox with the hole in the middle missing, or as they called them in America, radio releases, because they had them like that back in the day. And that's how radio stations got their stuff. So it was different. But by the same token, a lot of it was stuff that you could use, but it was a lot more difficult to use than it is today. I think everything's just got a lot easier in terms of the technology, making it easier for people to stay in touch, keep in touch, share, da-di-da-di-da. And I'll just try and do that. And with any luck, everybody should now be
self-isolating.
Yeah, yourself.
Yeah.
You were.
Oh, he's back.
You were self-isolating, but you're back now.
Were we?
Yes.
Oh, that was so weird. It was really like just having a little chat with your friends.
Yeah.
And then we were told we had to go back to work.
Well, yes. But one shouldn't panic. Who was the DJ who smashed Records Lift on air? I don't know.
You smashed Elvis.
Yeah, you smashed Elvis. Come on.
Yes, and I had a complaint to the regulator as well.
Why? You're absolutely right.
Oh dear. Yeah, we did have a couple of complaints back in the day to the radio authority, as it was then before Ofcom, and it was, I don't know, it was kind of different. But anyway, the complaints were not upheld, and if anybody ever heard the following programme that came on, much to the annoyance of everybody else, I read out the Ofcom report saying we weren't guilty. Sorry, the radio authority report saying we weren't guilty. And I actually put an Elvis LP on the record deck, because we had record decks then, and I was playing it backwards and forwards, slow and fast.
That's so good.
And somebody complained again. I mean, you can't make it up, can you?
But it didn't sound any better.
No, it didn't sound any better at all, Rach. It sounded flipping horrible. There was somebody who famously broke a record live on air, other than me. I think Mike Reed did it at one point with Frankie Goes to Hollywood. That was Radio 1, because he refused to play it point blank. And
Which song?
Well, do you know what? He should have just relaxed.
Exactly. Thank you, Rach. That's
do it.
That was the song that he decided was not suitable for a breakfast show, and just refused to play it. End of story. And I actually said to him once, we were having a beer and a sarnie in a pub, and I said, "What happened?" He said, "Do you know what? I thought I was going to be fired, but nothing really happened. They just kind of like went, okay," and just left it at that.
Did he smash his beer over the bar after?
No, he was so. It was really weird. He was so chilled out, quiet. The staff in there expected him to, because I just walked in. It was my local pub, and we just walked in there because we were talking about stuff, and everybody went, "Oh my God, Eric's got Mike Reed with him," and he was just like a normal guy. He wasn't, which he is. He wasn't at all precocious, arrogant, or any of the rest of it. He was just a regular person, and it is true. Those celebrities that have really made it that I've met very rarely are arrogant and rude. It's the
maybe he's bipolar.
Well, yeah, and no, I think it's the Z-list celebrities that are the annoying ones.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being in a post-production house in the middle of London when a radio station went pop in the 90s, and we'd been there all night playing music, and I was absolutely shot. And then I was supposed to, this station had a classical breakfast show, and I thought, oh no. And yes, I do like a bit of classical music, but I'm not what I would call au fait. I was sitting there almost grimacing, thinking, head in hands, what's happening? In walks this guy and turned around and said, "Look, do you want me to produce it for you?" I said, "I haven't got any money to pay you with, mate." He said, "Don't worry about it. We're all colleagues together. Let's help each other out." It was Alan Freeman. So he produced Not half. He produced the show for me. And he was absolutely amazing. He got his black cap and his black hat on, and he was just superb. And at the end, I came out and said, "Thank you so much." And he said, "You did very well, young man." And I thought, young man, I like you. And he was just so sweet about it. And with those people, they genuinely are normal people. And I think one of the other funny ones to recall, as you got my brain down that road, is I used to live in a little place called Orpington, which is very parochial in South London. And when you hear back in the day, when you hear or heard a V8 engine coming up the road, everybody opened their curtains. And so you heard this coming up the road, stops outside my house. Gary Newman gets out with his girlfriend, and they comes wandering over. And everybody's kind of like, "Oh my God!" The neighbours came out, "Oh my God!" But he was just so normal and nice and natural. He didn't have to prove anything, because you know what? He'd already done it. So why did he care? He was
so funny. All these people that you talk about, I've got no idea who they are. But Gary Newman's actually a Facebook friend of mine, and I didn't even know he was famous.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you never heard of Cars?
No.
No.
Oh dear, we're going to have to educate Rachel here.
I think we are, aren't we, really?
Yes.
He's
really young.
Clearly a Luddite from Australia.
Well, actually, he is incredibly popular still to this day in Germany. That's his biggest audience in the world at the moment.
He's got a wonderful head of hair. That's all I know about him.
He's got wonderful cars. I know that about him.
I mean, that's why I don't know he's famous, because it's cars. Who cares?
That was the name of the song.
What's the name of the song, Rach?
Song.
Rach, hang on, Rach. Here we go. Da 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 da. Cars. No?
Well, that was really
Well, we won't
unusual.
get taken off of Facebook for that, because nobody really realises what we're going on about.
No.
Nobody will recognise that.
No.
But they are.
I didn't.
And it's the same as Steve Allen in London. And if you ever get a chance to... In fact, you guys in Australia can listen to him, because he's on at silly o'clock in the morning, like 5 to 7 now, a.m. And Steve Allen, to me, is the master of talk. Now, when you hear people talking about him, it's really funny. They love him, they hate him, or they love to hate him. And he told me that was the best talk show you could ever have if you got those three. And you could learn so much from Steve just by sitting in the studio with him. And I had several years of sitting in the studio with him. And he was so nice. Before the show, he would make the tea like anybody else, and yet he was the star of the show. It was the Steve Allen show, and he'd say, "Right, who's up for tea then?" And he wasn't asking you to do it. He would be there. He would go and make it, and he's definitely very, very normal. Oh, Steve says he used to go to Liverpool Airport. He now lives in Essex, mate. And used to watch him land his plane there.
Well, he's not doing that now.
No, absolutely not. Although we do have a few light aircraft whizzing around at the moment. Hello to Libra. You never believe this, guys. Libra FM listening, wherever Libra FM broadcasts.
Fantastic.
Very good. Nice to have you with us, guys. We love having anybody from the industry with us on a Friday as we talk at the moment a lot about the industry, because it just seems more fun to be light-hearted at the moment. We always start with a serious bit, like we did when the Australian bushfires are on. We'll start with the serious news, and then we will have, as the English say, a little anorak as we go.
I'm glad that you brought that up about the bushfires, actually, and I'm not going to get morose, but don't you think Australia's due for a bit of a break here?
Yeah.
We had the fires, and then there was flooding, and now there's COVID-19, and I'm thinking, what did we do? We're nice people. We're lovely people. We're welcoming. But after the bushfires, we said, please come back. We're open for business. Please come and support our economy. And then COVID said, nah.
Well,
I just want to mention Kylie Minogue.
Why?
No, Henry, be careful. Henry, be careful.
I know. It's okay. I'm actually 1,000 k's away from Rachel. The reason I want to mention this is because Australia did a TV. I'm using the language now, TVC television commercial aimed at Britain with Kylie Minogue and Adam Hills, who's now very popular on Channel 4 with The Last Leg. And they did this commercial to entice people to Australia. And when the bushfires came on, they had to take it off the air in Britain. And then they decided to put it back on. And then COVID-19 came along, and they've taken it off again.
Okay, so
crazy.
it's her fault.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I've just been reminded that Steve's doing an amazing job on Facebook at the moment. They are very humorous. And if you look at Steve Mann on Facebook, he's got his tips for coping with the lockdown. They are very satirical, a lot of them. They are very funny, and I applaud you for doing them, Steve. It's really, really funny. So keep them going. Keep them going. The more that we can encourage people to laugh and while still being serious, I think that's a great thing. Now, we'll have to do this really quickly, guys, because we're almost out of time. But, Henry, what was the biggest disaster you had when broadcasting? Because we've just had one.
Oh, yes. Well, I've had a few, but the big one was I was working on a very small radio station in Dublin, And very briefly, I was coming on to read the news at 6, 7 in the morning, and the guy who was on all night had fallen asleep. And I was reading really serious news about Northern Ireland at the time, and he starts snoring. Now that is really dangerous, because you want to laugh, but you're talking about people dying. That's the worst thing that happened to me. I didn't laugh, but it nearly killed me not to laugh.
Yeah.
And this guy just snoring while I'm talking about death in Northern Ireland. That's the worst thing for me.
Flippy. What about you, Dave?
I think biggest disaster when I was working at CMR with you. I used to do a show just before the Media Zoo, which we used to do, and I remember everything went down in the studio bar one CD player and the microphone, and that was an interesting hour. That was trying to do a music show with one CD player. It was a bit. I mean, the lights went out in the room as well, so I was only illuminated by the buttons. Thank God there was lots of kit with lights on it. But yeah, one CD player, one microphone, do a music show. Off you go.
You're a true pro, mate.
Absolutely. And I tell you what,
it was a car crash.
I don't know the answer to this. When was ISDN introduced into broadcasting? I don't know. While we think about that for a second, this is for men. How to help your better half during the crisis. Learn how to do the ironing. Huh?
I already know how to do the ironing.
So do I.
Do you want to hear mine?
Yes.
Yes. What's your disaster?
Well, it was on RTI, and
Oh.
we used to do a break halfway through the show,
Yes.
and I thought we were still on a break and started effing and blinding and
Did you?
I was walking up a set of stairs, and Eric said, "What's that squeaking?" And I said, "Oh, it's just these bleeping stairs. They're just absolute bleeping rubbish."
No.
and I go, "Oh, you said swears. You said swears." And I thought we were still on break. I had no idea.
No. In fact, you're the only person that's ever said a naughty word on this show.
I know.
Did
Ever.
Ofcom get on
Right.
it?
Luckily,
Fired for
no.
that.
Luckily, no. We got away with that. But I do.
About 1986.
About 1986.
That's when ISDN lines were introduced by BT, so I would guess it
right.
wasn't soon after that.
Yeah, there you go. And they were fab for a while, but they were flipping expensive. That is for sure. Thank you to Steve and Tim and everybody else on Facebook. Thank you to I missed Juan, I'll do it properly, and the Libra guys and Gail, Tom and Laura and everybody else on you now. Quick across the other screen. There's too many screens. To Pierre. Wonder where you are, sir. Could be many countries in Europe. And Stefan, not the Slovak way of spelling it, so that means probably Scandinavia. And everybody else that's been listening, look, stay safe. Please take notice of your government. Do what they tell you to do. Don't be a political animal and slag them off and so on and so forth. Honestly, I've looked around the news. I've got access to news, and I do go around having a look. And I'm lucky that I can also kind of figure out what the languages are, and it's marvellous. So they've all got their own plans. They work on a plan for the country, and you just got to honour that work that they're doing and be respectful of it. Rach, I've got one for you.
Oh, hello.
I saw Rach in Prisoner. I hope that was her worst fashion disaster.
Well, you know what? I've got to clarify that I didn't get to choose any of that. They dressed me, and clearly it was all chosen by Stevie Wonder because it was absolutely
Oh my Lord!
I apologise to you, and for having to even see it, because there's some stuff that you just can't unsee, and thanks to the internet, I can't either.
Very quickly, Rach, we're going to go round. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Dave?
Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Stay safe, absolutely. Thanks ever so much for your company today, boys and girls. Don't forget you can keep up to speed with the news on the RTI radio page on Facebook, on Twitter, Consumer Watch Foundation as well. And we'll do our level best to keep you up to speed right the way through. I just want to say thank you to all the team here that keep the shows coming in to keep you entertained, because that's most important. And stay safe until next week. Thanks ever so much for your company. God bless. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
The Station of the Stars. RTI.